The Alpha's Untamable Luna. Episode 11. Dahlia blushes a little in the low light, and Riley watches with a chuckle. I appreciate that, really. I know how important your role is in the training of our other members. I don't mean to steal you away. She and Dahlia both laugh, but I doubt Riley is mistaken. I don't think many of my other students would feel the same way. I think if anything, they will be delighted to have a day off from me. I have witnessed firsthand how stubborn she can be as an instructor. Before I speak, I set my tea on the table, unopened. Dahlia knows enough to defend herself, obviously, being she got away from the strikers. But I'm afraid Jarvis's training surpasses most, and her personal investment in seeing Dahlia fail, well, it makes her a very dangerous opponent. I tighten my jaw. Charles gives a nod. He shakes his head, saying, I could see the anger in that one. It is startling. Dahlia gives a dismaying shake of her head. Startling and completely uncalled for. She's been after me from day one. Thinking she is who's best for Finn, since they had some meaningless fling back before I arrived. My whole body tenses up as the memories flood back, and Charles and Riley nod thoughtfully. God, I would never have allowed Jarvis and her feelings to be entertained if I had known then what I know now, that I would only be meeting Dahlia in a few months. Even in those early days, I could sense her interest in me. I simply didn't care about it. I always assured her that our relationship wasn't serious, and I was aware that she didn't particularly enjoy hearing it. However, to realize that she has come this far, primarily due to a decision I made on my own. Riley sighs and murmurs, Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Charles responds to Riley's remark by saying, but that may present an advantage for you. Dahlia and I both become intrigued by this statement. Dahlia answers before me, how do you mean, with a question that comes out of her practically immediately. Use her own rage against her. In my experience, when you have an opponent who is hell-bent on winning not only to gain advantage but also to prove a personal point, their anger is a gateway for mistakes. He says with a nod. Dahlia knits her brows and asks, so you're saying I should, what? Taunt her, egg her on. Won't that just add fuel to the fire? Charles gives a shrug of approval and nods. A likely possibility, yes. But if you do it tactfully, pick your moments to exploit her anger, she may just become so angry she burns herself out. Riley thinks about the situation and nods. She sweeps her long black hair over her shoulder and says, I would be doubtful too, if I had not already seen this happen before myself. The wolf becomes so enraged with human emotion it is like two sides of the same coin fighting to land face up. She will be so at war with herself, she will be unable to focus on you. Mistakes will be made, coordination lost. Riley stops talking, and the thought of Dahlia publicly making fun of Jarvis while they are fighting is making my head spin. Is it going to work? Dahlia might succeed if this risk proves to be as beneficial as anticipated, but it sounds like a nightmare to take. It's insane, no doubt, but just enough that it might work. I never would have thought to do that. Dahlia laughs in surprise as she confesses. I give her a reassuring squeeze as she rolls her eyes at herself in a friendly manner, saying, just goes to show you how much experience I have. Charles gives me a warm smile and I clear my throat. Ah, don't be so easily deterred, Luna. Fighting is not everything when it comes to leading a pack. Surely, Alpha Finn has already proved as much. We will take any and all advice and help you are willing to offer. I assure them of that. I say, I'm sure you need no reminder of what happens, should Dahlia lose. Based on the grim expressions on both of their faces, I can tell they don't. Riley nods solemnly and leans across the table to put her hand over Dahlia's, saying, "We will do all we can to assist you. You show great promise as Luna, we wish only to see you take your rightful place and stay there." Dahlia's expression is gentle and perhaps a little surprised as she turns her hand over and gives Riley a thank you squeeze on the fingers. Dahlia answers, "I want that too, more than anything." Her tone makes me want to go find Jarvis myself right now and put an end to this whole situation. With an almost devilish smile on her lips, Dahlia asks, "When do we start?" She seems excited. I clench my jaw and shake my head as a wave of fear and frustration sweeps through me. How in the world could Dahlia be thrilled about anything at this moment, let alone the possibility of facing Jarvis? There's a lot to lose and a lot to gain. At the same time, I feel my stomach rolling and my chest squeezing horribly, and suddenly I feel too hot. The others start discussing the details of Dahlia's first training sessions, including the time and location, but I can't hear them clearly. My mind is racing so fast and imagining so many different scenarios that I can't even make out what they're saying. I see Dahlia celebrating her win with Jarvis standing over her. As Jarvis leans in closer, her eyes glimmering with the resentment of knowing she's vanquished an adversary and earned her prize, I hear her murmur the word exile to Dahlia. I can see Dahlia's face as she comes to terms with her reality, a look of complete shock and heartbreak. I keep seeing the scene, slightly different each time, but the same. Everything about it is just too much. I get up from the couch before I realize what I'm actually doing. Everybody looks at me bewildered, and whatever conversation they were having has now stopped. I feel Dahlia's gaze burning into me, but I can't bring myself to look her in the eye. "I have to go, I'm sorry." Then, without my brain's consent, I'm walking across the floor in the direction of the front door. I hear the worry in Dahlia's voice as she calls after me, "Finn." I feel worse because of it. I don't turn around, I don't speak. I just slam the door open and shut it after myself. Dahlia staring at the door that Finn just closed behind him, I sit in disbelief. We were all caught off guard by his abrupt departure. Charles and Riley were barely expecting their alpha to leave them in the middle of a conversation, judging by the looks on their faces, especially when he was asking for assistance. I frown as I turn to face them again. I laugh awkwardly and say, "I should probably go see what that was all about." "I'm sorry, I don't mean to run out on you two," but Charles waves a hand empathetically. "No need to explain, Luna." He smiles softly and puts his hand on Riley's shoulder, giving it a tender squeeze. "He is your mate, you feel what he feels." "We know." I sigh and get up from my chair. I tell them honestly, "Thank you. Really, I would feel so much worse about this whole thing without knowing I had your support." Even though I haven't known Charles and Riley for very long, I feel a great sense of reassurance from them. They're sturdy. I can now see why Finn has such unwavering faith in them. Riley smiles sadly as she evenly shrugs and says, "Please, it is the least we can do." I will see you tomorrow, bright and early, as we said. I confirm by nodding. I bite the inside of my cheek and reply, yes, of course. I'll be there. Hopefully Finn too. I'm wondering where he's gone and what he's doing. After saying good night to Charles and Riley, I left their cabin, sticking my nose out to the wind in an attempt to catch a glimpse of Finn. I can locate him fairly easily, but as soon as I get into the main square, the trail gets muddy because there are too many scents for me to pinpoint exactly where he went. I quickly and carefully remove my dress and drape it across one of the kitchen bar stools before making my way back inside. The cool air stings my body as I return outside. I shift as I step off the porch and come to rest on my own 2 feet. My nose picks up Finn's scent right away, and I continue on the trail without any problems even after I cross the main square once more. His scent leads me all the way to the ocean-facing cliffs and then down a well-traveled path that descends the cliff side towards the shore. Although it is much less reinforced, it reminds me of the path that leads to the cave. Nothing to talk about, no steps. I eventually reach a tiny clearing with a carpet of wild flowers and long, yellowed grass that is only a few feet above sea level. The perimeter is adorned with arbutus trees, and there's a gap between them that's just big enough to let you see the waves crashing up the shoreline. Finn's silhouette shines in the moonlight there, standing motionless enough to pass for a statue. He talks without turning to look at me. He says in an acidic tone, "I came here to be alone, Dahlia." Oh, all right. So we're back to our old levels of rage. I approach him and let him know I don't care by giving him a low growl of annoyance. Is he the one who is irritated that he left me? Traditional. I pause to stand next to him as I lope through the tall grass. I am only a few inches taller than him because of my height in this form. He turns to face me and says, "Look, I'm going to say something and I can't have you interrupting, so don't shift back yet. Just listen." He looks so different to me now, in this way, for some reason. He appears more normal in some way when he looks up at me. He was normal in the sense that he was just a man, not an alpha, a warrior, or protector, or a leader of thousands. An extremely agitated and terrified-looking man. Finn shakes his head and turns away to gaze at the black waves as he admits, "I've been running this same scenario over and over in my head. I can't get it out. I keep seeing her beat you, I keep seeing her exile you, and watch you getting dragged away from me." Finn swallows forcefully, his Adam's apple bobbing as he does so, and I let out a soft whine. It seems like his feelings spill over onto mine. Inside of him, I can sense the apprehension, the icy terror, and the simmering but unquestionably hot rage. He begins, "I can't," but stops short. A muscle in his jaw flexes visibly before he turns to face me. "I can't have that happen, Dahlia." There was some small part of me that wanted to believe that I could. That I could be that strong, that I could lose you and still lead my pack the way I'm supposed to. But I can't, I won't. I have no desire to be Dreadmore Alpha if it is not with you as my Luna. If you lose, and you are exiled, I'm going to leave with you. When I open my mouth to protest, a string of barks instead of words escape my lips. I now understand why Finn insisted that I stay in my wolf form for this discussion. For a brief moment, a look of amusement appears on his face. He knew I wouldn't let him off the hook so easily, and he was correct. Finn's hand reaches up and cups the side of my face, his fingers softly tracing through my fur. Don't try to change my mind, Dahlia. Not just because I know that this is what I want to do, but because I don't want to keep going back and forth about it. The anxiety of not knowing what I'm going to do is worse than just making my mind up now and putting it to rest. I lean my large head into his hand, close my eyes, and rumble in understanding. If we actually do have to leave together, I feel a little sad for everyone who will be impacted by this. All of our friends, Finn's family, and the other members here and back east. Finn frowns deeply, and I can see how difficult it must be for him to accept that he will be dictating his sister's fate based on her somewhat self-centered decision to be with me. Sam is next in line, and she'd be made Luna the moment I abandoned my title. I know she would manage, with the help of my parents, even if it isn't what she imagined for herself. He must be being torn apart by this at the moment, God. Since her brother was destined to bear that burden for the majority, if not all, of their lives, Sam has most likely never given the idea of being Luna any thought. She will essentially lose her ability to make her own decisions if I lose and we depart. She will be devastated. He nods to himself and confirms his thought by saying aloud, "It's the only way I see any of us winning. You and I can be together. Jarvis won't have the satisfaction in being Luna with me as Alpha and will likely abandon the opportunity as soon as she realizes it, and the Dreadmores will have a competent leader to turn to, in the end." I open my eyes and cast a questioning glance back down at Finn. He gives me a nod and shrugs after tilting his head thoughtfully for a moment. He says, "That's all I needed to say, you can shift." I instantly do so. His eyes slowly scan my body as I stand there. Even when we're here, thinking about our own lives and the future of our pack, our desire for one another is only a surface emotion. I give a half smile and say, "Hi." Finn, in spite of himself, gives it back. He responds by holding out his hand and saying, "Hi." He pulls me towards himself, and I take his hand in mine, our fingers encircling each other. As our foreheads touch, he also takes my other hand in his own, raising both to lace our fingers together. I take a moment to close my eyes and enjoy the peace of this place while inhaling the scent of Finn and the salty ocean air. I can see why Finn would pick this location to come and spend some time reflecting. I whisper to him, "You have to stay." I open my eyes to find his still closed. I can see the glimmer of hurt and rage behind them as they open a moment after my words have registered with him. He looks at you narrowly and responds, "I told you not to try changing my mind." I retort, "And I'm telling you I don't give a damn." Finn immediately drops my hands and backs off, frantically running his fingers through his hair. Turning on his heel to face me, he yells, "Dahlia! No, I am not doing this. I am not going to keep boomeranging back and forth in my mind about whether to stay or leave. I made my choice. It's you." He wildly gestures at me. I take a slow breath and shake my head, already aware that this will not be a simple conversation. Not only am I telling him what he doesn't want to hear, but I'm also telling him that it's necessary. I take his face in my hands and walk up to him, but he avoids eye contact. "I know you want to have a plan, so you know what to do when the moment comes, but Finn, you have to stay. Forget about Jarvis, okay? Forget about her. We still have a pack out there who is hell-bent on demolishing any and all other ways of life among wolves, including ours. I grimace as feelings of rage and sorrow come over me. If you leave with me, who is going to be the one to lead against the strikers? Sam? You think she'll be able to do that, with zero experience or know-how? Against a pack as vicious as them? That's a risk you're willing to take. I can feel my ribs squeezing around my body in a way I've never felt before and never want to feel again as he remains silent as my words take hold and his eyes briefly return to mine. Finn appears to be in a lot of pain because he knows that I raise a number of valid points, but he is also being asked to do something that goes against everything in him. His voice is barely audible above a whisper, and without my acute hearing, the sound of the waves would have overpowered his words, but I want you, Dahlia. I need you. My lip quivers as I'm overcome with emotion. His remarks pierced me like daggers, and I believe that's why it hurts so much. I know that I feel the same way. I need Finn, I want Finn. However, he is far more needed by many someones, in fact than by me. It's a survival issue for the pack. I just see it as a matter of heartbreak. Heartbreak that is terrible, gut-wrenching, and excruciating, but still heartbreak. I could survive as an Omega on my own if I'm banished until I find another pack to adopt me. Maybe Finn could come over there someday. At least together is included in this equation at all, even though we would be both together and apart at every moment. I whisper back to him, tightly closing my eyes to stifle the tears that are trying to escape. I know, baby, I know. I swallow hard as his arms wrap around my waist, drawing me flush against him. I need you too, you know that. As the sounds of the waves sighing up the beach envelop us, we are silent for a while, holding each other close. Finn distances himself from me with a new, much less distressed look on his face after an indeterminate amount of time. He says in a steady, low voice, "We're not doing this, we're not. We're not losing each other." I refuse. He states solemnly, "You're my Luna," and the expression in his eyes when he says it chills my spine. And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make sure it's you who wins. I start to reply and say something, but all that comes out of me is a series of giggles that sound almost delirious. Dahlia. Finn furrows his brows, utterly perplexed as to why I'm laughing so hard at the point where we're deciding to do whatever it takes to defeat Jarvis, no matter the cost. It's a pleasant diversion from the fear and sorrow I've been drowning in for the past few hours, and I'm not even sure why I'm laughing either. I simply accept it. I manage to say, I am sorry," in between giggles, and Finn's expression shifts from bewilderment to mild amusement. He asks in genuine confusion, "What's going on with you?" I don't know. I continue to laugh. This is just so ridiculous. I scream, gripping my now painful stomach. My life is crazy. I chuckle more, stepping back to rest against one of the arbutus trees near the aperture overlooking the sea. Finn tilts his head and looks at me almost analytically, as if he's trying to find any other odd symptoms I might be displaying. Well, aside from my insane laughter. I take a few calming breaths and fight the urge to burst out laughing again as he stumbles over his words. "It certainly has been," he shrugs and gives up trying to think of another word, which only makes me laugh aloud as I double over again. Okay, yeah, crazy is a good word for it. Recollections race through my mind, beginning years ago when I first started to dream about meeting my partner and ending right here, with him. After all of this, losing my pack, discovering Finn and the Dread Moors, falling deeply in love with him, battling the strikers, getting shot, and now Jarvis? I just can't seem to get a break. It's all so funny. I continue to laugh, now wiping the corners of my eyes as they start to water, and Finn laughs a little despite himself. I think, I make myself pause and take a deep breath, since I'm likely to faint otherwise. I take a slow, deep breath and shrug simply, saying, I think I just have to laugh at all this because, I mean, it's all I can do now. Finn shakes his head and says, I think you might also be in shock. However, I can tell he's not too concerned by the smile tugging at his lips. I acknowledge his point by nodding. I push off the tree I'm leaning against and move a few paces closer to him, saying, completely possible. I smooth down the front of his shirt, feeling his hard, warm chest beneath the material, and say, but there's some part of me that just knows this is going to be okay, even if it doesn't necessarily feel like it. My hand is resting over Finn's heart when he catches it. I can feel the steady beat of it beneath my palm as he holds it there. I look up into his eyes and say, I'll always find you. Just like I did all those weeks ago. I'll always find my way to you. How can I be worried about what's going to happen, knowing that? I'm pleased to see that my words have an impact on him. His eyebrows raise in mild surprise, and his eyes widen just a little bit around the edges. The beat of Finn's heart quickens beneath my palm, and I can barely contain my smile. Finn doesn't say anything, but instead presses his lips to mine in a passionate kiss that causes my knees to buckle just as they did before. As before, his arm around my waist grabs me, and I start frantically taking his shirt buttons off, my need for him taking over. Finn appears to be thinking the same thing because his fingers are softly caressing my legs before I've even succeeded in undoing half of the buttons. Pleasure rocks through me as I groan into his mouth and reach out to balance against another arbutus tree. I'm lying back against the cool, damp carpet of grass and wild flowers in the midst of a storm of lips on skin and clothes being thrown away carelessly. The night sky is framed by the arbutus trees, whose branches seem to be reaching up to touch the stars. With his arms on either side of my head and his clothes now gone as well, Finn floats over me and looks down at me with pure love and devotion. Before I see the moon directly behind his head, I reach up for him, knowing that my eyes only reflect his. I point and say, look, and he follows my finger up towards the full moon that is currently overhead. I take a deep breath and say, so beautiful. After staring up at it for a while, Finn turns back to face me, his eyes now full of mischievous dance. He smirks and draws attention to my bare body, saying, I don't know. I think I've seen better. I start to laugh when he continues, I know I've seen better. Finn catches my mouth once more, gently this time, his tongue carefully drawing a line along my lower lip in an attempt to gain access. I gladly open my mouth for him, groaning as his tongue caresses mine with a homicidal tenderness. After leaving my mouth, he moves his lips across my cheek, jaw, neck, and finally stops when he gets to the area between my chest. The area that the Luna's obsidian still occupies today. I totally forgot to take it off in my haste to get here. Although it initially felt like a lead weight around my neck, it now feels almost like a part of me. Finn traces the rough, slightly jagged edge of the stone with his index finger. He says, "You were made to wear this," with unflinching assurance. His eyes sucked me into the pools of melted chocolate as he said, "The moment I saw you with this, it all made sense. This is meant to be yours, Dahlia. No one else's." Before hastily rolling us over, I put my legs around Finn's waist and sit on top, straddling him. The luna's obsidian dangles between us, and the stone rubs against his exposed chest as I bend down to place my mouth over his. As he tries to bridge the gap between us, I press my nose against his and ask, "Just as you were made to be mine, and no one else's?" Pulling back just enough to prevent him from doing so, I tease him. I repeat, as a smile appears on my face. When I pull back again, he growls and responds, "Yes." His attempt is in vain. I find his rock-solid member by reaching down between us and grabbing on tight. I slowly and precisely pump him a few times, and he sucks in a breath. He tilts his head back in pleasure, his fingers digging into the flesh of my hips. I snicker to myself as I start kissing him all over his chest, from his pectorals to his abdomen, all the way down to his navel. As he murmurs, he sighs, and I kiss the skin a few inches from where he most wants me. "Jesus," he says. I smile and hum against his skin, "Patience, baby." He must be able to sense my smile because he quickly wraps my long ponytail around his hand and pulls firmly, which makes me feel both pleasure and pain. Finn lets out a strangled groan as I take a sharp breath at the sensation and then run my tongue along the underside of his shaft, tasting him. Before putting it in my mouth, I kiss the tip of his member and move my tongue around it in a way that I know makes him crazy. Not much time passes before two powerful hands seize my shoulders and drag me upward and outward. "Hey! I wasn't done yet!" I protest to Finn, but the intensity of his gaze is almost paralyzing, and I am unable to say anything more because of the fire in his eyes. My face is tilted down towards Finn as his hand clamps down on my chin. He states plainly, "You are going to get me too close like that." His voice purrs in my ear as he says, "I don't intend for this to be over so quickly." I get a chill of anticipation and we quickly settle into a rhythm that leaves me breathing and with a heady sheen of sweat on my skin. I manage to say, "Finn," staying just far enough away from his mouth to look down at him. "This is criminal." He laughs and gives me such a glance that I start to question how in the world this man is real. He stands up, asking, "Never did claim to be a saint, now, did I?" "Believe me, baby," he says. Finn gives a deep growl. "I want to do very bad things to you." As though it were our last time together, Finn and I spent the next few hours making love with everything we had. Naturally, we have committed to doing everything in our power to prevent my potential exile from happening, but the outcome is still very much up in the air. I never imagined that Finn would touch me with such tenderness and hunger. He has ravished and memorized every patch of my skin on my body. I also got to know him in a different way, paying close attention to every little detail. I sucked, kissed, and bit whatever flesh I could find, and I know it pushed Finn to a new limit. The 3 freckles in a line behind his left knee, the precise slope of his shoulders as I gripped them with my fingers. Dawn is just peeking over the horizon when my eyes briefly open. Finn is awake when I roll over, even though it's very early. As I put my arms around his neck and nestle closer to his body, he says, "If you don't leave soon, you're going to be late for your training." I sigh drowsily into his warm chest and say, "I can spare 30 seconds for this." We exchange silence, and despite Finn's level breathing and the strength of his arms encircling me, I can tell his nerves are running high. I think back to last night, when I pressed myself closer to him while looking down at him in my wolf form. Even though he is the most fearsome, courageous, and powerful alpha in the world, the Dreadmore Alpha Finn was and still is just Finn. I am aware that the Dreadmore Alpha is not displaying fear in his eyes or worry forming his features, rather, it is simply him plain, sweet, lovely, him. A wolf who treasures his mate, a man who loves his woman. "I love you, Dahlia." I sit up just enough to stare at him, puzzled but moved, as the sentence tumbles out of him. Finn tucks a strand of my hair away from my face, his face nearly unreadable. His knuckles brush my jawline as he confesses, "I can't remember if I said that to you before we fell asleep." I respond with a devilish smile and a shrug. "Well, to be fair, there wasn't a lot of talking going on." I respond. "So I suppose, just once, I can forgive you." I tilt in his direction, rubbing our noses together as our eyes close. I grin to myself as a low rumble travels deep within Finn's chest. "I love you too," I say with a tender peck on his lips. "But you're right, I have maybe 20 minutes before I have to meet with Riley, and I would rather not show up naked." Finn, 10 o'clock has arrived. I haven't been able to do anything productive for almost 5 hours while Dahlia has been at her training session, other than pace the floor as if my life depended on it. The idea of eating makes my stomach turn, and I'm not willing to take the chance of seeing what happens if I do, so I've had 3 cups of coffee and nothing to eat. I had to explain what I would do if Dahlia's exile ever happened because my parents wanted to meet with me first thing this morning. Although telling them wasn't pleasant, they understand that it was ultimately my decision. Like Dahlia, they also brought up a number of concerns regarding how exposed the Dreadmores would be if I abandoned us to Sam's controls so quickly and right before a battle. I told them that Dahlia and I are not considering her exile as a real possibility at this time. Even though we are aware of the disadvantages, we will be damned if we allow Jarvis to get away with it. Someone knocks on the front door as I'm pacing my well-traveled route from the kitchen island to the end of the living room wall. Nova is there when I swing the door open. "Nova?" I inquire, startled. "What are you doing here?" Nova tilts her head in dismay and gives me a frustrated look. She throws her hands in the air and cries, "What am I doing here? What are you doing here?" That's the bigger question, as her numerous bracelets and bangles clatter dramatically. "Your mate is preparing for the literal fight of her life, and you're in here wearing a hole through your floor." Nova's strawberry hair looks more fiery than usual, and her hard, no bullshit gaze is fixed on me. Perhaps it's just her that's more fiery than usual. The seriousness of the situation for Dahlia is brought home to me once more, and I clench my fist gently and set my jaw. I turn away from her, leaving the door open for her to enter. "You don't need to tell me how serious this is, Nova, I know." Nova quickly intervenes and settles in, leaning against the kitchen counter and folding her arms while keeping a close eye on me. I scowl as Nova continues, "Honestly, everyone is so angry at Jarvis for robbing Dahlia of her title night, she might not even make it to the combat challenge. I realize how unhappy this has made my pack, in addition to Dahlia and me, feel. Without hesitation, I confess, I wouldn't be upset if they did do something. I get angry and clench my jaw once more as I consider all the ways I would love to see Jarvis vanquished. As far as I'm concerned, she is no longer of the Dreadmoors. It is only her birthright allowing her to keep that identity right now. Nova shifts the subject by saying, "True enough, but that isn't why I came here, Finn." She looks at me beggingly and says, "You need to be there for Dahlia, physically be there, show up, support her." I know she is right, but the sinking feeling in my stomach makes me remember why I am unable to go. I let out a deep breath, run my hands through my hair, and then gaze out the window into the woods. The squirrels are busy and totally unaware of my human troubles as the sun shines through the enormous conifers. I know you're right, Nova. But I can't. If I show up and see her training with Riley, see just how unprepared she is for Jarvis, knowing how little time we have to help train her, I start to feel my chest tighten and shake my head in agreement. It's too real if I see that. It takes me a long time to look directly into Nova's eyes, and she remains silent until I do. Her features have a peculiar expression that I find difficult to identify. She seems to know more than I do. With a slight smile on her lips, Nova says, "I really think you will feel differently about that if you just come see her." I feel my spirits rising at the prospect of seeing Dahlia in person after worrying about her virtually all morning. I know it would really boost her morale, too, she adds. I think for a second, then nod curtly to Nova. "Lead the way." Nova swiftly leaves my house and heads into the woods, following the trail that leads to the cabins occupied by our Eastern Pack members. Nova hides behind one of the cabins and takes a different route until she reaches a sizable clearing in the forest where a number of our members are assembled, all participating in different training activities. This area is surrounded by both humans and wolves, and sparring partners choose to be either. I hear the clatter of metal blades and turn to my left to see our pack members standing in a queue, each brandishing 2 long daggers. They alternate between steps, swings, blocks, and steps as they dance. A pack of wolves is rehearsing their defensive positions to my right. Moving as a pack is more than just charging into battle. We've learned to modify our ways of moving and traveling, choosing to adopt particular formations based on the terrain, visibility, and protective requirements of individual pack members. As I continue to scan the expansive clearing, I tell Nova, "They all look good." Nova gives a nod of agreement. With a slight smile on her lips, she refers to the strikers and states, "I would be scared of us, if I were them." I acknowledge that she makes a valid point, but I still can't relax. Knowing that her mate is one of our most defensive members, I inquire, "How is Callum doing?" I remember the firm, nearly immobile position he takes in combat. You can't really knock him off his feet. You have a formidable opponent when you combine that with his quickness and reflexes. "He's good," Nova responds, thoughtfully pursed for a moment. I nod in agreement as she says, "He's been helping Charles organize everyone for running drills. You know how so many of the younger guys look up to him. Callum wants to be a good influence on them. I've always thought Callum was valuable in this way, he knows what a pack really needs." When I ask, "And what about you?" Nova simply shrugs and laughs dryly. She smirks and responds, "Oh, you know, watching my mate march off into the front lines of battle and my best friend being challenged for her title and possibly facing exile is just peachy." I laugh, enjoying her grim sense of amusement. Mostly, I believe, because I am feeling equally depressed about it all. I let out a sigh as I feel the still present weight on my chest. I genuinely say, "I know it's all such bullshit, Nova, I'm sorry. If I could go back in time, you have no idea how much I wish I could change." As she shakes her head, Nova's strawberry blonde hair catches the sunlight, briefly giving her an impossible red look. She raises an eyebrow at me and says, "None of us blame you for anything, Finn, you know that, right?" I choose not to respond because I am aware that my perspective is different from hers. I just feel sorry for Dahlia. She just hasn't caught a break since Frostclaw was attacked. Not that she's acting like it, of course. Knowing how accurate Nova is about Dahlia's ability to maintain her composure, I give her a gentle smile as she explains it. In my opinion, it is as admirable as it is worrisome, if not more so. As I think of Dahlia and the hardships she has had to face, I firmly press my lips together. I can't resist letting the acid seep into my tone as I visualize Jarvis's face. I want nothing more than for Dahlia to be able to put this whole fiasco behind her. At the sight of her, my wolf bares his teeth and growls. This whole striker issue was one thing, but Jarvis is deliberately stirring the pot. I'm shaking my head. As she attempts to comprehend the type of future that lies ahead for all of us, Nova nods silently, her eyes gazing off into space and her thoughts elsewhere. As we proceed through the clearing, we come to the far end, where there are significantly fewer people practicing drills and sparring. This is where we find Riley and Dahlia, who are already sparring. For a split second, my breath catches as the moment I've been so terrified of comes to pass, witnessing firsthand how Dahlia's abilities compare and how good of a chance she has. With her back to Riley's chest and her arm still pinned behind her back, Dahlia struggles for control. Given that neither of them loses concentration as we get closer to them, it appears that Nova and I have not yet drawn attention. "Come on, Luna. You are stronger than this." Riley grits her teeth and tries to keep Dahlia in her grasp. "Jarvis will not hold back with you, she will take you for everything you've got. So, you need to show her what you've got." With a growl of exasperation, Dahlia twists violently, releasing Riley's hold. Dahlia turns to face her opponent and delivers a forceful right hook as her first blow. Riley, however, moves aside before Dahlia can respond. Dahlia's foot sails past, a roundhouse kick undelivered, and Riley ducks again. Riley yells, "You must be faster, Luna," as her foot swoops out and grabs Dahlia's ankle. Dahlia's body hits the ground with a thud, and as she does, a cloud of dust rises up around her. By this point, Dahlia's skin is really filthy, and I can see a few sweat trails that have trickled through the dirt and are running down her limbs in muddy little streams. My stomach tightens as I consider how vastly outmatched Dahlia is against Jarvis, and I wonder how much she has been hitting the ground. Dahlia's hand unexpectedly swoops out and tightly wraps around Riley's ankle, tugging. Riley falls to the ground in a heap after failing to see it coming in time. Dahlia is on top of Riley before she can do anything else, holding her forearm against her throat and using her other hand to grasp a jagged, sharp rock that is aimed at Riley's jugular. Riley stops, and Dahlia's labored breathing and the distant clamor of the pack members behind us are the only sounds audible for a beat. Then a chuckle. Riley declares, "Well done, Luna," and raises her hands in surrender, signaling to Dahlia that the match is over. "You took me by surprise, and with an improvised weapon too." Dahlia gets to her feet, unsuccessfully brushing herself off. She gives a frustrated huff, then turns to see Nova and I standing off to the side, as if she knows how pointless her efforts are. "Oh," she says, her eyebrows going up. She smiles weakly and says, "Finn, I didn't know you'd be coming by. Sorry it wasn't more entertaining for you, I still have a long way to go." Riley approaches Dahlia from behind and gives her a tender pat on the shoulder. She smiles widely, her slender feline face growing even more impressive. "Oh please, Luna, give some credit where credit is due. A few hours ago, you would have been defeated when I had your arm behind your back. Now you're actually making it hard for me," she says. "Please, Alpha, take it from me, she is making great progress." I see nothing but genuine sincerity in Riley's eyes as they gaze at me. Riley wouldn't lie to me about Dahlia's skills, I'm sure of it. Riley would be the first to publicly and unreservedly declare that she was a lost cause. Riley has never been concerned about telling the truth and upsetting anyone. I can see that. I nod in agreement. I knit my brows and ask Dahlia, "Where did you get the rock from?" Dahlia appears to be trying not to be overly proud of herself as she smiles a little. "I landed on it when I hit the ground. Hurt like hell, so I figured I should make a grab for it, see if it would be useful." Riley grins and gives a nod of approval. I feel reassured and proud that Dahlia has been able to compete, and Riley tells Nova and me, what she lacks in formal technique she makes up for in creativity. "I think that will give you a real edge with Jarvis. She'll be accustomed to polished technique, not improvised maneuvers." Knowing this to be true, I nod. Given the kind of training Jarvis has received over the years and the fact that she has only ever sparred with other skilled wolves, Dahlia's unconventional methods are likely to throw her off balance. Dahlia laughs and rubs her hand across her forehead. Today's August sun is unbelievably relentless. She walks across to where a water bottle rests in the shade of the trees and reaches for it, saying, "Well, I guess I should be glad to at least have that going for me." Dahlia eagerly downs the cool liquid, her throat bobbing enticingly, but I watch too closely. I bite the inside of my cheek and turn away, hating how easy it is for me to lose control with her, even now, of all times. A bead of sweat trickles down from her temple, down her cheek, down to her jaw, and down her neck. "See? Don't you feel a bit better, seeing that she can hold her own?" Nova asks me, smiling and nudging me, her eyebrows wriggling as she probably prepares to say, "I told you so." I think Nova is the person I hear that phrase from the most, besides Sam. Too often, she turns out to be correct. I suppress a roll of my eyes and simply shrug. To an extent, sure. But we both know how good Jarvis is, I go on, observing Dahlia as she fastens the cap of her water bottle and has a brief conversation with Riley. I'm worried Jarvis's tunnel vision is going to be more than Dahlia can take. I'm honest. Nova turns to face Dahlia, a gentle, perceptive smile spreading across her lips. I've just realized that Dahlia and Nova share a bond that I don't fully understand. I've never given much thought to how close they must be by now, even though I know they are good friends. As we watch Riley and Dahlia reform to start another match, Nova sighs, "You know, I'm not so sure. Jarvis is scary, for sure, but I think Dahlia will surprise us. If there's anything that girl knows better than any of us, it's survival." Dahlia, Riley and I are still fighting, and even though I feel like my legs might literally melt into jello and my arms might fall off my body, I know that I'm improving. With each dodge and counter, I sense it. It's becoming instinctive. My hands and feet are reacting before my brain has even made up its mind. Now that I'm seated, I'm drinking more water while Riley and Finn converse softly. Nova comes over to me with her hands stuffed deep in her long cardigan's pockets. With a soft smile and encouraging green eyes, Nova says, "For the record, I think you're nearly there." Riley was actually out of breath when you guys finished the last round. I put my water bottle lid back on and wipe my mouth with my hand, wiping the water away. I chuckle dryly as Nova smirks, acknowledging once more that the odds are still heavily in my favor. Even still, it might not be enough. But I'm not about to let the bitch take me down easy. She says, more confidently than I do, and that is exactly why you're going to come out of this thing just fine. I frown a little as I look back at Finn and Riley. I turn back to Nova and ask, "How is he doing?" Her gaze also lands on her childhood friend and Alpha, and I see a moment of concern flash across her face. I wince and ask, "Geez, that bad?" before giving her a small smile. Nova pretends to be annoyed as she smiles and gives me a gentle shoulder push. She says, "Please," rolling her eyes. Nova's tone shifts and her features fall as she says, "You joke, but I really haven't seen him like this before. Not once, not with any of the previous battles or packs we've faced off with. I think this is the first time I've seen him truly afraid, and not be able to hide it." At Nova's admission to me, I get a knot in my throat, and I can't help but look back at Finn. He must sense my presence because he looks up and holds my eyes there for a second before turning back to Riley, even though he's still preoccupied with Riley. I turn back to face Nova, who is still in front of me and has a sheepish yet worried expression on her face. I let out a sigh before answering. I whisper, checking to make sure no other wolves are listening, "He was going to leave if Jarvis tried exiling me, so we could be together. He told me last night, and I had to talk him out of it. The entire thing would be madness. The Dreadmores would be shell-shocked and Sam wouldn't know how to navigate such a dicey situation with the strikers." I am shaking my head at the news. She exclaims, "Good God in heaven," with eyes as big as dinner plates. She eagerly affirms, "You made him see sense, right?" I give a quick nod. "Yes, yes. We've agreed now that it won't come to that," I inform her. I shake my head and let out a dry laugh. I have no choice. It's her or me, literally. I am going to do everything I can to take her down, Nova. Nova, who doesn't seem to mind that her hand is now smeared with the mixture, squeezes my sweaty, filthy shoulder. She smirks and waggles her brows at my official title, saying, "If anyone can do it, I know it's you, Luna Dahlia." I laugh and playfully push her away, getting up to continue my match. Riley and Finn come towards me with a rather unsettling expression of mischief in their eyes. Riley folds her arms across her chest and says, "Luna, you're doing well. So well, in fact, that I think it's time we switch things up. It's time you face an opponent with the same caliber of skill as Jarvis." Finn approaches me with a warm, playful smile tugging at his lips and warm brown eyes. He pulls me to him by slipping his hands around my waist and landing on the small of my back. My breathing stutters as he ghosts his lips over mine and asks, "How about it, Dahlia? Think you can take me?" I grin and bend to get closer to Finn, but he pulls away just enough to make it difficult for me to breathe. I gently run my hand up his chest and respond, "Only one way to find out." This gives me the opportunity to watch Finn's jaw flex. I suddenly pull Finn's leg out from under him by hooking my foot around his. A huge cloud of dust rises from beneath him as he lands with a thud, and I snicker to myself as his hard, steely eyes meet mine. "All right baby, game on." Finn. Before I turn to face Dahlia, I quickly get myself up off the ground. Her eyes glowed with a kind of challenge and excitement that truly surprises me, and she had this cute triumphant expression on her face. In preparation for a confrontation, Dahlia raises her chin a little and narrows her eyes. She tells me sternly, "You better not pull your punches, Jarvis won't, so you can't either. Even if you want to." I resist the impulse to roll my eyes. "Don't worry," I say as I glance at Riley. I turn back to Dahlia, who gives Riley a satisfied, understanding look. "Riley already beat you to lecturing me about the importance of making this as real as we can." Nova shouts, "Give him hell, Dahlia," as she and Riley stand on the sidelines, applauding. Unable to help myself, I smirk and shake my head, rolling my eyes this time. Even as a child, Nova has always supported my demise. The only change is that Dahlia is now standing across from me rather than Sam, but Nova is still the steadfast supporter of my downfall. Dahlia gives Nova a fleeting smile before launching her right fist past my ear as I shift out of the way. Dahlia doesn't give me a chance to respond as I dodge a barrage of blows, stepping this way and that, leaning, and ducking. I give her right side a hard poke when she finally lets it get exposed due to exhaustion. I can't resist taking advantage of Dahlia's moment of weakness when she stumbles back on impact. I know Jarvis would consider doing the same. Dahlia successfully blocks the first of my two quick succession blows, but the second knocks her off balance and she tumbles back into the dirt on her hands. I leap on her and use my hands and knees to pin her down in an instant. Dahlia fights hard against my grip, and I'm shocked at how much strength it takes to hold her down. Despite her imperfect technique, she might actually be as strong as Jarvis just by brute force. I smirk down at her as Dahlia starts to get tired and slows down. "What do you say, baby? Do you yield?" I see in real time Dahlia's eyes light up with fiery resolve as the words sink into her head. Again, she demands, pushing me away from her as I let go, rolling out from beneath me and getting to my feet. We continue 4 more rounds, each one getting harder for me as Dahlia gets more accustomed to me and my fighting style. She's obviously exhausted, though. She seems to need all of her strength and stamina to get back up off the ground after landing on her back in the dirt for the 5th time. "Again," she exclaims again, her voice still resolute and relentless. I cross my arms and sigh as I watch the filthy perspiration trickle down her temple and neck. I might actually let myself enjoy the way the liquid beads trace paths down Dahlia's olive skin and the way the dirt on her skin only seems to sculpt the muscles that are visible in her arms and midsection if this weren't a training exercise designed to get her ready for the battle of her life. I gently remind her, "You're allowed to take more of a break between rounds, this isn't the real deal yet." Dahlia's long ponytail of tangled curls sways as she gives an insistent shake of her head. She raises a dirty eyebrow at me and responds, "Exactly, I'm not going to get breaks with Jarvis, will I?" Again, she yells, indicating that I should drop into my fighting stance, which she already has. After almost an hour of standing off against Dahlia in the blazing August sun, I wipe my brow and feel the perspiration starting to build up there. Given the intensity of our rounds and the fact that I haven't trained in a few months, I can already feel my own muscles starting to strain and hurt. Riley comes over holding Dahlia's water bottle and asks, "At least some water, Luna?" Dahlia gives a brief smile of gratitude, takes it, and quickly gulps back the liquid. Dahlia then nods to me while holding out the water. I accept the offering without objecting when she knowingly says, "You should have some too." I murmur, "Thanks," and then avariciously toss the water back. Even though it's lukewarm, it helps prevent my mouth and throat from becoming dry. While shaking my head, I quickly splash some on my face and neck, causing the droplets to fly off. I believe this is the first time I've seen Dahlia relax since we began our sparring rounds because she has a gentle smile of amusement on her lips when I turn to face her. As I get closer to her and hand her the water bottle once more, I ask her suspiciously, "What?" I can't resist gently bringing her chin into my grasp and tilting her face up towards mine. "Nothing," she says, shrugging lightly. She chuckles and I feel the corner of my mouth lift into a half smile. "You just somehow look the same shaking off as a human as you do a wolf." I bend over and give her a quick kiss. I step back, drop into my fighting stance, and let go of her chin, saying, "Suppose some things never change." "Ready when you are." Dahlia also drops into her stance, so I seize the chance to attack first. We dance after Dahlia flawlessly blocks the attack and counters. I quickly start to gain the upper hand, pushing Dahlia back into the treeline and towards the clearing's edge. My advances have gone exactly as planned, and I've almost got her completely confined. However, something changes just as I begin to believe that this round is almost over. Dahlia evolves. She is somehow much lighter on her feet than I am, and she moves faster than I anticipate. After working so hard to trap her against the treeline, I can feel my muscles aching and pleading for a break, but Dahlia doesn't give me a single inch of space. I stagger back, almost losing my balance, as my reflexes fail and she manages to land 2 solid hits to my side. She is behind me, kicking my knees out from under me as I try to catch myself, causing me to collapse onto them on the ground. Dahlia then locks me in a tight headlock while the bone of her forearm squeezes my windpipe, making it difficult for me to breathe. God! In fact, it was the little minx. In my ear, her breathy voice says, "Yield." I quickly tap my hand against her twice to signal my surrender because my airway is too narrow to even try to resist. Beside us, there is a burst of cheering and clapping, and we both turn to see Riley and Nova grinning. I turn back to Dahlia, who is laughing despite herself and dabbing at her forehead to remove perspiration. A wave of emotion sweeps through me, and I recognize it: hope. Dahlia is swept up off the ground in my arms as I collide with her. I spin her around in a celebratory manner, and she gigglingly exclaims, "Whoa!" at my reaction. I put her back down and look down at her soiled face, which has never looked so lovely as it does now. Her vivid blue eyes gaze up into mine with curiosity and a hint of pride. Riley places a hand on Dahlia's shoulder and exclaims, "Now that is truly impressive, Luna. I don't know that I could best Alpha Finn. He is a formidable opponent, as Jarvis will be." I grin as I start to realize what exactly happened to cause Dahlia to beat me, and I shake my head. Dahlia looks back at me with a smirk tugging at her lips, so alluring that I have to bite the inside of my cheek to resist giving her a stupid kiss in front of Riley and Nova. "You played me the whole time, didn't you?" I ask her. "You acted as if you were losing your energy and strength, but in reality, you were preserving it through each of these rounds." Dahlia smiles broadly and shrugs. "I had to play the long game. I knew you weren't going to go down in the first round. I had to let you get tired." She expresses herself clearly. "Waited until you thought you had me pinned, and then, well," she continues, making a hand gesture before letting out a small laugh. Without hesitation, Nova throws her arms around Dahlia and gives her a firm squeeze. Dahlia blushes slightly in embarrassment as Nova lets her go and exclaims, "I knew you could do this. I just knew it. I would pay money to watch you take Finn down again." The two of them laugh together. Jarvis isn't even going to know what hit her. I wouldn't have agreed with Nova's statement just a few hours ago. However, Jarvis is going to be genuinely shocked after going through as many rounds as I have, particularly this final one with Dahlia. Dahlia has truly succeeded. She has given herself a genuine chance to win. Riley turns to see Charles coming from his position with the other members farther out in the clearing. With a big smile, he exclaims, "I saw your victory from across the clearing, Luna." As Riley reaches for his free hand, he scratches his chin and says, "I don't think I've seen Alpha Finn on his knees, well, ever, I think." I put my arm around Dahlia's waist and pull her close to me, kissing her head with pride. I squeeze her side, making her wriggle a little, ticklish, and say, "She's the first and only one to do so." Dahlia lets out a sigh as she looks up at the sky and the sun's position. It is almost 4 or 5 o'clock, if I had to guess. She laughs wearily and says, "I need food and a shower." I scowl for a moment, wondering how many hours she has been without eating. I ought to have gotten her something from the house. Nova gives a nod. She fans herself with her hand and says, "You've earned it, girl. I don't know how you're still standing upright, to be perfectly honest. I'm not even the one doing the fighting and I feel like I need a break from this." I twitch my chin in the direction of my house. I give Riley and Charles a thoughtful glance and say, "We should get going, let you rest up and recover before dawn. I can't thank you enough, the both of you, for helping us." Charles shakes his head, and Riley smiles effortlessly. Without hesitation, Charles says, "Think nothing of it, Alpha." He smirks evilly, and Dahlia laughs with him as he says, "We know how capable Luna Dahlia is. Now it's just a matter of time before Jarvis does too. Dahlia takes a step forward to embrace her mentor's petite but muscular body and says, "Thank you for everything, Riley. I'd be truly hopeless without you." Riley appears momentarily taken aback, probably not anticipating such loving words and deeds from her new Luna. However, the expression vanishes in an instant, and she fully returns the gesture. Riley shakes Dahlia encouragingly and says, "You are a formidable opponent, Luna." Dahlia blushes slightly as she laughs amiably, and the pink flush on her cheeks makes me feel lighter. You need only believe it. When we get to the main square, we say goodbye to everyone, with Nova choosing to walk back with us before separating off to go home. Dahlia and I are left to stroll hand in hand, are quiet, thoughtful but comfortable. As we enter the house, Dahlia turns to wrap her arms around my middle and bats her lashes at me in a cute way. "If I run to the shower, can you whip something up for me to eat?" she asks. I wipe a flyaway hair from her face and laugh at her antics. Even though her skin is still streaked with dirt, dust, and mud, it seems to enhance her appearance as a warrior and make her appear even more untamed and wild. "Turkey and Swiss?" I inquire, referring to what she typically eats for lunch. Her eyes light up with excitement, and before she can say another word, I know that this is the right suggestion. She exclaims, "Yes," with such joy, and her voice and smile make me question how I was able to mate with her again. At the end, she sheepishly adds, "Please," with a faint smile. I'm a fortunate bastard. I pull back to lightly brush my nose against hers and give her a brief, tender kiss. Even though I can smell the perspiration and grime on her, it only makes me want to throw her into our bedroom and keep her there for a few hours. However, I am aware that Dahlia is currently incapable of doing that, both mentally and physically, given this shit show with Jarvis. Sincerely, I tell her, "You were amazing out there today." I swallow back the lump that is growing in my throat and say, "I'm sorry I didn't show up sooner to see you, part of me couldn't risk having it become that real for me, having to see you at such a disadvantage." Dahlia's blue eyes dart up to meet mine as she laughs dryly. With a defiant gleam in her eyes and her eyebrows raised, she challenges me, saying, "Well, I hope if anything, you can see that I'm not so disadvantaged as you once believed." I fold my hands on the small of her back, drawing her a little closer to me as I laugh softly and shake my head in mild surprise. I say, "Trust me, first." I smirk and say, "I am actually somewhat worried for Jarvis now." Dahlia furrows her brow and narrows her eyes. "Really? Worried?" she repeats, her tone tinged with disgust. I drop the act and my tone as I shake my head. Dahlia leans up to me and laughs as I say, "No, not in the slightest." "Destroy her?" With a tone that is to be legal, she asks, "Is that an order, Alpha?" In an attempt to get closer, she leans in and bats her lashes at me. "Absolutely it is." I respond humbly before putting my tongue in her mouth and licking her lower lip, sending a tiny chill through Dahlia in the process. She presses her hands to either side of my face, groans softly against my lips, and then gently pulls away. For the first time since Jarvis's declaration on her title night, Dahlia's blue eyes look up at me with genuine confidence. After her rigorous training with Riley and myself, she is confident she can handle Jarvis. Her gentle pat on my cheek says, it's all going to be okay, Finn. She swallows hard, and for a brief moment, I can see that her eyes glaze over, her thoughts abruptly diverted. You'll see. I know you love to go all doom and gloom when it looks bad, but there isn't anything I wouldn't do to stay here. With you. With the pack. And I am aware of the location. To Frostclaw, her former pack, and her family. The one she so cruelly and unjustly lost. I am aware that she still grieves daily, but in a private manner. I will always be in awe of Dahlia's ability to adjust to this life after hardly having time to comprehend the one she had before, and I will always have the highest respect for her. I give her a forehead kiss and respond, I know, baby. I say with a flare of rage in my gut, my wolf bare his teeth as his hackles rise up in readiness, you're going to give Jarvis absolute hell, and then we're going to do the same to the strikers. Then we can put all this shit behind us for good. He is extremely eager to destroy both his mate and his own enemies. He has waited for far too long. As I do so, Dahlia lets out a sigh and pulls away, letting go of me. She says, I am going to shower, with a meek smile. Carefully, as if it were a bother, she asks again, if you could still make that sandwich. I shoo her away, giving her a light smack, which causes her to giggle in surprise. As I turn to the kitchen to start gathering my supplies, I say, go, go, it'll take me 5 minutes. She disappears into the bedroom and calls out, thank you, from down the hallway. Now that my nerves have subsided significantly, I proceed to prepare the sandwiches for us, my hunger having already expressed itself. Since Dahlia needs all the fuel she can get at the moment, I cut up a side of fruit and vegetables for us as well. I call out to her, Dahlia, as I make my way down the hallway to the bedroom. I trail off, it's all ready for you, as I open our room's ajar door wider and see Dahlia's figure on the bed, her legs hanging down and her top half tipped over onto the pillows. Seeing that she is still wrapped in her towel after taking a shower makes me smile quietly to myself. She is sound asleep, as evidenced by her closed eyes and shallow breathing. Her skin feels incredibly smooth as I move my fingers down her cheek. She opens her eyes slightly, stirs a little, and puts her hand in mine. I assist her in undoing her towel as she says, I'm so sleepy, baby. She pulls the blankets back from underneath and peels it out from around her. Pulling the blankets up around her, she scoots herself into bed. Can I eat when I wake up? Tucking her in a bit more, I laugh. As she settles into the pillow, I tuck a lock of damp hair behind her ear and say, of course. Get your rest, baby. I bend over and give her a temple kiss before whispering in her ear. I love you. I lean back and a drowsy, contented smile appears on her lips. She says, love you too with such ease that I find myself questioning why I ever thought I'd be without this woman and this love. I was a stupid fool. Before I leave the bedroom, I draw the curtains a little more so that it is nice and dark for her to sleep in. Before I leave the house in time for one of our strategy meetings, I finish my sandwich and all of the side dishes and wash everything down with a large glass of water. I feel lighter than I have in what seems like forever as I make my way there. This is something we can accomplish. Me and Dahlia. We are capable of leading the Dreadmoors, Jarvis, and the Strikers. At last, I feel as though the life I've been imagining for us is attainable. The picture is getting closer and closer as it comes into focus. Dahlia, my muscles feel like they've been stretched with toffee when I wake up. I stretch my arms gently above my head, enjoying the sensation of both pain and pleasure. I'm shocked to see that it is 3:14 in the morning when I glance at the clock on the nightstand next to me. I must have slept this long because I truly needed it. My heart sinks when I notice Finn is not where he usually is, looking over at the bed next to me. I swiftly swing my legs over the bed and start putting on the first respectable outfit I come across. I emerge from the bedroom, wearing one of Finn's sweaters and my denim jeans, to discover a faint glow emanating from the kitchen. I can hear lowered voices more than that. The first voice asks, "You really believe she's ready?" And I know it's Corwin, Finn's father. Finn answers right away. His tone betrays a simmering bitterness. She's as ready as she could ever be, for someone who is just getting thrown into this. He believes that what Jarvis did was genuinely unforgivable. He interrupts himself, and I can hear the sudden emotion in his voice. She's trying, Dad. Trying harder than anyone to make sure Jarvis doesn't come out of this victorious, because if Jarvis does somehow manage to, he says. There is a moment of thoughtful silence between them, suggesting that Corwin must also sense this. If Corwin has ever seen his son like this, I wonder. As Alpha, has Finn ever had a good enough reason to be this afraid? Has Finn ever let anyone, not even his parents, see him this terrified? I keep asking myself these questions in an attempt to comprehend both the man my partner was before we met and the man he is developing into now that we are together. Finn will always be, in a way, Finn, so it's like trying to fit puzzle pieces from two different puzzles into a larger one. At times, the pieces almost look the same, and maybe some of them even are. However, his kaleidoscope of aspects keeps changing and shifting just enough to keep me guessing. Is the Finn that everyone else has known the same Finn that I see today? How much of him is the Finn that I have assisted in rediscovering and bringing to light? With unwavering seriousness, Corwin says, "You understand, Finn, that despite your tie to Dahlia, you still have an obligation and responsibility to the pack." I sense him preparing for the inevitable reality of our circumstance when he says, "We all want you to be with Dahlia in the way you were destined, as mates, as Alpha and Luna. But if Jarvis does walk out of this as victor, you must remain here. As Alpha." "Dad, no, you know that Finn starts to explain his choice, but Corwin hisses and interrupts. "No. You listen, Finn," he exclaims, his voice low but irritated. Corwin's voice levels out again, his emotion controlled, and he says, "We have an enemy out there that is seeking to destroy our way of life. The way of life that has allowed us to expand and rule under a regime of peace and fairness for decades upon decades. We cannot afford to lose that. Our pack, their families, and their children, cannot afford to lose that." He underlines. As I hear Corwin's words, my stomach drops to the floor. Finn and I both know that he's right. Everyone knows Finn has to stay. If not, he abandons hundreds, if not more, to either flee and attempt to start over somewhere else, perhaps with another pack, but probably not, or to be killed when the strikers finally close in. If Finn chooses to stay, he can completely avoid both of these terrible options. At last, Finn asks, "How?" in a voice that is hardly audible above a whisper. He sounds almost numb as he asks, How do I do that, Dad? How do I abandon my mate? Could you? Could you do it, if this happened to you and Mum 20 years ago? After clearing his throat, Corwin lets out a sigh. I can't tell you what I would do if it was me in your place. He responds. 20 years ago, I never would have believed there to be a pack so hell-bent on rejecting their humanity. I never would have believed them capable of destroying packs in a matter of hours. Finn gives a sour laugh. He mimics his father before scoffing, so that's it then? Sorry son, couldn't tell you, this wasn't something I had to think of back then. Please. Cut the bullshit, Dad, you know that it would tear you to pieces to leave Mum in exile while you continue as Alpha alongside the she-wolf that's responsible for the whole thing, as your Luna. He seems incredulous and at a loss for words. Tell me you could endure that. For a long time, Corwin remains silent as his son's words take hold. Finn's words ring true with truth, just as Corwin's did. To be faced with, let alone live with, such a reality is terrible. Corwin falters. I swallow hard as tears sting my eyes, realizing how trapped we both feel in this. I don't know what to say, Finn. I would never ask anyone to be put in the position that you and Dahlia have. It truly doesn't feel like any choice you make is the right one. Finn's next words have a different tone. No, he replies. He sounds incredibly confident when he says, Dahlia is going to come out of this, and she is going to remain Luna. I know you keep asking me to plan for what happens if she loses, and that makes sense, but Dad, you should have seen her today. He's actually grinning. She had me fooled the whole time, I played right into her hand. Corwin acknowledges with a sound. Which is impressive, to say the least. I've not seen anyone get the better of you since you and Sam were children. Corwin's voice is softer. She really got behind you, he asks, and as Corwin follows up, I can only assume Finn is nodding. How? Finn chuckles. My mouth opens slightly as I say, hell, I don't know, she was so fast. I feel pleased with myself. And she's strong, Dad. A hell of a lot stronger than I'd expected. With Riley's help, she has enough technique and know-how to actually make Jarvis work for it. He appears to be cheerful. According to Corwin, Riley is the best person she could ever learn from, with gratitude. I'm glad, if anything, that Jarvis's challenge came at a time when so many of our friends from back east are here. Finn agrees and hums. He sighs and says, it is a silver lining, I suppose. Then he screams, I just hate that I can't do anything to fix this. I'm forced to sit back on the sidelines. His voice rises and then falls again. I've never not been able to control the outcome of my pack and its members, who stays, who goes, until now. I hear a hand clapping onto what must be Finn's shoulder or back, so Corwin must be aware of his son's sadness. Even though I'm listening in, Corwin's sage advice is soothing. Leading is not always about controlling, Finn. Sometimes it is stepping back when the moment calls for it. Even when it breaks you to do it. Finn, that's the thing Dad, begins. It will break me to lose her. He plainly and knowingly acknowledges this. When Corwin asks, you love her, don't you? I can practically see Finn's jaw tensing up like it does when he's upset. I can feel my body igniting with excitement and warmth as he says, more than I ever would have believed possible. Corwin states plainly, then you have to hold out for her. I remember the time I spent with Finn on the shore after he stormed out of Riley and Charles's cabin. Corwin says, if Jarvis is the one to win, and Dahlia is exiled, you cannot give in to the pain and the bitterness. You have to hold out for Dahlia, and the hope that you two will find your way back to each other. I promised Finn that nothing would ever be large enough to prevent me from finding him again. Don't give Jarvis the satisfaction in knowing that she took the most precious thing from you. She can't ever take away what you share. Your bond. That is for life, Finn. You must hold out. If not for Dahlia, and not for yourself, then for the Dreadmoors as a whole. He reminds Finn of the true significance of this, the group. Finn's voice is nervous. He sounds somewhat dissatisfied but also utterly unsure of his other options when he says, I'll have to try, somehow. Again, there is silence between them, and I know that now is probably the best moment for me to be noticed. I make sure to loudly close the bedroom door behind me as I take a few steps backwards along the carpet to let them know I'm awake. I call, Finn, and immediately notice his shadow moving from the kitchen to the hall, meeting me at the intersection of the two spaces. Hey you, he says, placing his hands on my waist and planting a kiss on my head. He looks into my eyes and says, You've been out for a while, I wanted to give you as much rest as you could get. I frown as I see the dark circles of the Dreadmoors beneath them. I ask, have you slept? And all he does is shrug and smile weakly. He says quickly, not really. Coffee helps. As we make our way into the kitchen, I give him a disapproving shake of my head. When Corwin looks at me, I wave a little. Hi, I say. I chuckle lightly and say, I hope you're not keeping yourself awake unnecessarily too. Corwin gives me a small smile. No, I was scheduled to run patrols through the night, so I woke up around 7 p.m. I respond. I'm well and rested. He giggles. I hope you are too. We are all hoping for the best of outcomes, Dahlia. He replies with integrity. I give a nod of agreement. I say, I appreciate it. I'm not sure what else to say. Thanks, but hoping for an outcome is a far cry from actually achieving it, is what I want to say. However, I don't, and before he takes off, Corwin says a brief goodbye to Finn and me, stating that Miriam will be waking up shortly and probably needing some time to calm down before the combat challenge in a few hours. A couple of hours. All that separates me from the rest of my life is that. I correct the thought and look at Finn. The remainder of our lives. As Corwin makes his way through the wooded pathways to his and Miriam's house, we stand silently and listen to his footsteps fade away. Finn doesn't finish his sentence, his voice trailing off in emotion, before he turns on his heel and walks towards the cupboards, shaking his head as though he were waking up from a nightmare. You should eat, get your energy up before that, he says. I scowl as I sense the abyss of grief in my stomach somehow growing into a chasm. His confusion, fear, anger, and complete disbelief are all palpable to me. I feel like I'm a sponge with pores and holes that absorbs every feeling that goes through him. Finn? I ask, keeping an eye on his back as he works rapidly, putting granola into a bowl before rushing across to the refrigerator and opening the door. A part of me believes that the reason he doesn't respond to me is that he can't hear me over everything else. What I mean by everything else is his own thoughts, his mind racing to try and understand that this is our reality, and more importantly, how to deal with it. I repeat, Finn, more flatly this time, hoping to break whatever spell he's in. He's madly slicing a banana so haphazardly that I'm wondering if he's going to cut off the end of a finger after spilling yogurt over the granola. This is now turning into a risk. I put my hand on his big shoulder as I walk across the room to meet him at the counter. I say sharply, Finn, and this time he hears me. As he slams the knife down on the counter and turns to face me, his eyes wide and bursting with emotion, the last piece of banana falls into the bowl. With a harsh, icy tone, he spits out, "What, Dahlia?" His tone would have sent me reeling to the other side of the room just a few weeks ago. But not tonight, not anymore. I turn Finn to face me directly while maintaining a firm grip on his shoulder and reaching around him to grab the other. My palms rest on either cheek as my fingers gently move up from his shoulders to his face. I close my eyes, press my forehead against his, and tilt his head down just enough so that it is at a right angle with mine. I hold Finn still with my hands on his face while I take a few deep, long breaths. Right now, I don't open my eyes to see what Finn is doing or how he's responding to me and my brief workout. I just stay as motionless as I can, doing everything I can to keep Finn's thoughts rooted in the present. Not every thought that goes through his head, every what-if and could-be scenario. After a few minutes, I notice that the grief, anxiety, and rage that were previously emanating from Finn are no longer there. Now that the tension has left his body and his breathing is in sync with mine, all I can sense from him is relief and love. Later, when I open my eyes again, I notice that Finn's eyes are still closed, and I smile quietly to myself. However, his eyes open as though he knows, which he probably does in some way. But now I see something I haven't seen since those hunters and my near-death experience, tears in his eyes. His eyes leave mine and fall to the ground as I say, "Hey, worried." I tell him, "I'm right here. Right here." I stroke his cheeks with my thumbs as he blinks, causing tears to stream down his cheeks. On my second swipe over his skin, I remove them. After swallowing hard, he finally says, "I'm sorry." He shakes his head, saying, "I shouldn't have snapped at you. This whole thing has me so nervous, Dahlia. More nervous than I have ever been in my life." I scowl, realizing that I share his fear of the terrible consequences. With little else to say, I say, "I know." I clench my stomach as I tell him, "Me too, you know that. But your dad is right, Finn, you have to stay." His eyes meet mine, a little bewildered, then correctly identifying the situation. He asks, "You heard us," and I nod and shrug a little sheepishly. As Finn's eyes soften a bit, I confess with a humiliated laugh, "I didn't mean to listen in, I just wandered out to find you and yeah, I listened in." It somehow made me feel both better and worse. He nods and laughs sourly at what I said. He says, "You and me both." "But I meant what I said, Dahlia, you can do this, you can beat her. You just have to pick your moment." I nod, but I can't think of anything to say that is worthwhile or that I haven't said before. We have discussed this matter to the very end. Nothing more needs to be said or discussed. Now it's either her or me. It's that easy. I hate this, I tell him out loud. I clench my jaw and remove my hands from Finn's face to rub my eyes in exhaustion. I hate all of this and what it's doing. To me, to you, to your family, to the pack, all of it. Finn cups my face now, his face filled with concern and tenderness. That's why we're going to end it. You are going to end it. Even though his eyes are duller than normal, there is a glimmer of light just behind them, which indicates that he is still hopeful. You're the most incredible person I've ever known, Dahlia. If there's anyone capable of beating all the odds, it's you. I shake my head slightly and laugh uncertainly. I say, that's one hell of a claim to make. Finn shakes his head briefly before planting a long, tender kiss on my lips. For a few seconds, I let myself lose myself in it, in him. I'm not sure if this will be my last chance to be this way with him. These are the times I wish I could be more grateful for and present for if I am banished. After gently pulling away, Finn ducks down into my neck and sniffs my skin, his nose tickling with pleasure. As Finn concentrates on tickling my most tender spot, I start to giggle and turn away, shrinking back a bit. He doesn't give up easily, though. His hands somehow ended up on my waist, holding me firmly in place as he flexes his arms around me. Before continuing, he swiftly moves to the other side of my neck, which is totally exposed. I writhe in his grasp, giggling more and more as his nuzzles continue to tickle me. Then Finn is laughing too, doing everything he can to hold me still so he can continue further. I finally yell, I can't breathe, while laughing so hard that my stomach hurts. At last, Finn stops his titillating movements, allowing me to take a deep breath. I look up to see that his eyes have lost their dullness and are now filled with warmth and mischief. My Finn. He says, I love that sound, and I furrow my brow in perplexity until he explains. I feel like I'm the most amazing thing he has ever seen based on the expression on his face when he says, Your giggles. Without missing a beat, he asks me abruptly, how did you do that? Then I furrow my brows and ask, do what? He asks me this as if it were the greatest puzzle he has ever faced, a mystery he is trying to solve. Calm me down, rein me in, whatever you want to call what happened a second ago. How did you do that? With a half smile tugging at my lips as my mind recollects so many different times, I simply shrug. Imagining her brown complexion and short, dark curls that always seemed to fit her cheeks just right, I say, Serafina used to do it for me. I swallow hard as the lump in my throat rises, as it always does when I talk about my true parentage. When I was little, I had a lot of panic attacks. Serafina was never sure exactly where it all came from, but she thought it had something to do with being abandoned as a baby. She believed your body remembers things your mind forgets. Now, all signs of laughter and jokes have vanished from Finn's face. Anger and sadness are mixed together in his eyes, and I can feel them leaking back into me. I'm a little surprised by how carefully Finn asks me, you know I'll never leave you, right? He adds hastily, never by choice. I get a stab of emotion in my chest as I'm reminded once more of how much our lives and our love are on the line at this moment. I give him a gentle smile and move my hand up his chest, stopping to keep it where his heart beats steadily below. I respond, I know, as my eyes start to water a little. However, I quickly push them down so that I appear as composed as ever when I look back up to meet Finn's gaze. I'm not worried about that. My hand remains on his chest, and Finn covers it with his own. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.